Dude, that was an incredible game. I didn't see the first half. I don't know how much I missed. And I'll get to that in a little bit about my kids' game. But dude, the Bears game was incredible, man. And you know what's crazy? Well, after it was what 41-27, and I walked out of the room. I
I,
walked out of the room. I came back. I'm like, wait, they're about to score, and they just scored, and it's 42-40. What the hell happened? They
I
scored
was at a
15
wake.
points.
Okay. I was at a wake and we were watching the game and it was just like you said, 41-27 or something. We all walked away and then like people started tapping us on the back. You got to go back to the game. It's like, it's like the Bears are down by one. I'm like, what? I thought it was over.
It
What
was
a game.
wild, man. What a game. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
incredible. What a game. What a game. I see you
A
got your
lot like last week, though, right? In the
yep.
market. I mean, the Bears game. I don't know if anybody who's listening watched it. It was a back and forth game and actually went nowhere. I mean, the Bears end up winning it on a play where they tried to get into field goal range and then end up scoring a touchdown on it. Right? Loveland just ran his butt off, which was
I mean,
great.
that was crazy. That was awesome. Look, those two winning tight games like that, man, that's huge, man.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
huge.
going to the Super Bowl. But just like last week in the market, we really didn't go anywhere. We went back and forth a little bit, a lot of tug of war. It looked like we were going to fall out of bed. Looked like we were going to scream to 7,000, and we really just kind of ended where we started the week, right around 68, 70 ish and change. So we'll see what tonight brings. Pre-market, it looks like it's up two or three handles. Doesn't look like it's up that much. Anybody can see that, by the way. If you have the bid ask on top here, obviously you do. That's the pre-disseminated market. Now that's subject to change and change in a quick way. That in no means set in stone, but it gives you an indication. If we were a lot weaker, it would be 10, 15 handles lower. If it was a lot more bullish, would be 10 or 15 handles higher than that. It looks like it's pretty much an unchanged opening, at least for the equity markets. But we'll see.
Actually, this is a good time to mention that, and you said this before, and I mean, actually, it's a good time you said that and to mention this. The weekend Wall Street, people have been talking about this a lot. I actually never really know. Did you ever look at this?
No.
So it's an IG product. I actually had never heard about it, but I've heard about it from other people, and then Nikki actually mentioned it too. And so it's apparently it's kind of a thing that approximates the potential open fairly close. So like you
What's it
said
say?
we're
What's
up.
it say for the mini S&Ps? What's it say for
It
the Nasdaq?
it's saying well, it just shows S&Ps from what I see. It's saying up 3.7 points, 68.37 bid, 68.38 offer. So.
Okay.
And
We'll
apparently
see.
yeah, I didn't know about it either. Honestly, I just heard about it in the last week.
Nice.
But yeah, the weekend
And
Wall
that
Street
and the
IG
Nasdaq
product.
looks up around 60 handles. That looks like the most bullish, at least 26,044 on the bid. So you got about Nasdaq a little bit stronger than the E-mini S&Ps. But we'll open here in about 2 minutes.
Yeah, we got a couple minutes. I see you got your gear on. What's up? What happened with games this weekend?
We got a game. I got a game right after this. I got a
Oh,
game
after this.
seven at
Okay.
7 o'clock. But we played yesterday. We played a Catholic team, the Celtics. Yesterday, they're ranked fourth in our little state of Illinois, and
Okay.
we beat them 3-1, which was pretty
Nice.
good. Which was
Nice.
pretty good. But
Yeah,
we're a snake bitten team. We'll lose to other teams by a goal that we should beat. So I don't know.
I know how that goes. Yeah, they can stop playing to the competition, right? Just play your game.
Yeah, yeah. We're playing New Trier now, which is a big rivalry
Oh
for us. It's like
yeah.
the next town over.
Yeah. We just had a game today, football. We had a playoff game. We
How'd you
won,
do?
man. Yeah, with 23 zip. We blanked them. Great game. It was
Wow.
tight. It was tight early on. Man, I'm not gonna get into all the details and other stuff. I don't want to say certain things, but we did get a safety early on. It was 2-0 and it was tight. We went to half 2-0 and then eventually we
Oh,
started pulling away and ended up being awesome. So we won 23 zip. So we're on to the next.
very nice, very nice. Yeah, 2-0 into the half. That's a tight game. You can't get any tight unless it was 0-0, by the way.
I personally, we definitely scored a touchdown early on. I'm not going to get in here and start talking about certain things that happened, but
Okay,
we
fall
did
back.
score a touchdown, but it wasn't counted and whatever, went 2-0 and a half and we ended up pulling up.
Well, we just opened. It looked like the E-mini S&Ps flashed up six real quick that I can see here. It looks like they opened at 78, which is right about here, right open four or so. Nasdaq only up around 15 or 18 or so. It did get as high No, right around here. That is about it. Russell up 2 and the Dow up 14. Volatility in by 5 cents. Volatility was the culprit for most of last week, especially the end of last week, staying bid pretty much for most of the week, especially in the second half of the week, even when we went back and forth and then eventually rallied into the end of the week. Bonds are up 3 ticks. 117.13. I think they're taking a back seat to the market now that's trying to march to new highs. Bitcoin up 250 over 10,000, 110.5 and change. Ethereum on the other side is down $24, pretty much unchanged. That gets a little bit of a move to the downside. 38.85. Oil up 45 cents. Gold up $2, hanging out at 4,000. 4,002 under the 39.90, hanging out at 4,000 exactly right now. Silver down small, about 5 or 6 cents. What do you think about this overall unchanged market? Even the S&P's up 8 now.
I don't know how much it means for the week, honestly. I mean, we've had some pretty sizable ranges, even though futures haven't flashed a whole lot on a Sunday night. Although, I mean, 2 weeks ago they did, but I don't know. I don't really make much of it. I'm just curious of what the theme is going to be for the week. Last week it was earnings and the Fed, right? Like, what's going to be the theme this week?
Yeah, I think Palantir is the first one online
Oh, you're right.
for earnings coming out of the chute on Tuesday, I believe. I can look right here. Yes, November 3rd, after the market closes. Palantir has been one of those market leaders, just like Microsoft and, well, not Microsoft, well, Microsoft of course, but AVGO and the others that all had earnings. What was it? Amazon, Apple, the Reddit, MSTR. They all had earnings last week, so we'll see what's going on now. Even the S&P's up 10, catching a little bit of a bid here. Volatility in by 15 cents. Let's get back to volatility for just a moment. Let's just call it $19. What do I think? You get an opening here tomorrow morning with the even the S&P's up 10. You'll see volatility in by another 20 cents, I would think, or more if the even the S&P stay up here. And if they gravitate towards anything up 20 to 30, you might see volatility in by 70 cents or so, flirting with going under 18, taking back pretty much most, if not all, of last week's move. That's my own personal opinion. Now, on the downside, if the market rolls over a little bit here, you're going to get volatility into the 22 handle, and you're going to get it real quick. So you're really looking at, like, just under 19 right now. Maybe we get to 18, probably not on the if the market goes higher, and the market goes lower, you're gonna get volatility going through the roof up 2 or 3 handles to 22-ish is my own thinking. That's what I'm thinking here at these guys. So I got a little bit of powder dry. Like, I'm cautiously leaning long into most of the market, neutral on a lot of my SPY and Q positions, a little bit long on some individual equities, but cautious in my size. My size is not nearly as big as I typically would be if I felt like we were any place else but all-time highs.
Yeah, to that end, I have probably more short calls in my book that I've had in a while, via, whether some of them are just outright short calls, some of them are strangles where I honestly refuse to roll the put up, right? I'm just using it as a situation to allow that short call that's closer to the money to just be a short call for me in this market where we're basically near all-time highs. So I do have some of those. I'm with you. I don't have as much powder dry as I probably should, but it's a result of having a few more short calls than I probably normally would have. So I'm looking for a little bit of a pullback here too.
You also this week, just for earnings, I know we'll have Ilia coming on here in a minute. He'll probably talk a little bit more about that too. But I said Palantir comes out on Monday, and then, like, I think on Tuesday you got AMD and I don't know, maybe you can consider Uber and Shop if you can. Hood comes out on Wednesday with
Yeah.
Qualcomm. So you still got a couple of stocks here, APP. You still got a couple of stocks here that could move, or at least bring a catalyst to the market in one direction or another.
Well,
Uh,
I should have tagged you on this thing, but I found this pretty cool thing on Twitter, Sky, and he put out some of the names and expected moves. So Palantir, right, as of now, right, could
mhm.
change a little bit, but Palantir has a 10% expected move. AMD 9% on Tuesday. This is Tuesday. AMD 9% expected. Uber 7.4% expected. Shop 11.2% expected. Wednesday, you mentioned Hood. That's about a 10% expected move. Qualcomm 6.8 expected. App 14% expected. So yeah, there's quite a few names that could possibly move some things around.
That 5 to 7% is kind of like the old kind of sweet spot for expected move in earnings. You get 10%, that has high implied volatility. You don't even have to tell me what the name is. Like if you say 10%, it should have a good high IV rank. If it has decent market, then I think those are premium selling opportunities. 5 to 7, still premium selling opportunities, but more normal. That 10%, that's like a bell. When they start making that 10%, you can go 2 times the expected move, 1.5 times the expected move, and still get juicy premium out there. I think those stocks that you just named, I think will come I think they'll come into play next week for sure.
It's a good game to play. I mean, like ARM, for example. You know ARM. You know the
Yeah,
tech one.
sure.
What kind of expected move you think? Just throw
Ooh,
me a number.
ARM, that's a stock that usually drives me absolutely bonkers. So I would say it probably has like a 9% expected move or something like that.
10.7%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ding ding. Yeah. McDonald's, on the other hand, 3.5%. So
Yeah.
yeah, good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What you would expect.
Yeah. That makes sense. And you said Hood was about a 10% too, right?
Yeah, it's 10%. Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, yeah, that definitely makes sense. And you said McDonald's 3 or 4 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, 3, 4. Yeah, same thing with
Mhm.
I think God, there was another one of those consumer names, similar deal. So yeah,
Mhm.
you're right. Did you go to Halloween party or anything? What'd you do?
No,
Did
I
you
had a
even put a
hockey.
mask on?
No, no. I worked the clock. No
You guys
tricks.
had a game that night?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
man.
guess so. They're feast
So
15,
the
right? They're
coach told
15,
the
yeah.
coach told the kids because they had Halloween parties and stuff like that. He's like, well, if you don't come to Saturday's game, you ain't playing on Sunday's game. So one kid didn't show up. So so all the parents are seeing if the coach is gonna stick to his guns here. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting.
Hey, these are the decisions we make, you
But it
know.
was great that they after they were done with the game, they all shake hands and stuff like that. And then I never saw them sprint to the locker room so quick. And my son, who's usually one of the last ones out, was one of the first ones out. And then I started driving. I started driving a little faster for him. You know what I mean? And he's like, "Oh, Dad, you're a lifesaver. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. 'Cause trying to get to the party that is not going to be as good as they think it's going to be."
Of course not. I know. Our little dude. I mean, first of all, he hit me. So they had a half day on Friday, and he hit me up, and he was like, he gets out of school 11:30 at noon. He hits me up, texts me, just so you know, I'm going to be gone the rest of the night. Wait, what? Like, all right, man, that's cool. Like whatever. Just we'll figure it. And she and I had already been talking about how we're going to police this thing, what time he's going to show up, and then lo and behold, by the end of the night, he's like, "Can I sleep over?" And like, dude, you got to walk through. This was Friday night. On Saturday morning, we had a walkthrough because the game was a Sunday. You got to walk through in the morning. Like, what? You gonna be home? Yeah, yeah. No, I'll be home. Please, please, come on. I was like, all right, man. Go ahead, man. Go do the sleepover. You're gonna be up till 3 a.m. Sure enough, they were.
It's always I don't sleepovers. I try not to. I don't do them. I don't mind them as much in my own house, but I'll pick you up at 1 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? Like I don't care. I mean, your mom doesn't sleep. I'll sleep because I can sleep on a picket fence. You're on your own. What can I tell you? I don't care. But mom doesn't sleep. You never sleep. It doesn't. It's no good for anybody. But you know what? Somebody else we can't sleep on. Let's bring this man in the house. Ilya's here. Ilya, shed some intellectual.
What a
Well.
segue. What a segue.
Give us your intellectual market awareness here. What's going on? Even the S&Ps are up 14,
I mean,
15.
those of us in macro land are waiting for this government shutdown to be over so we can actually have some data to parse.
So does this make you feel less relevant, or does it make you feel more relevant?
It makes you feel more
We're at
relevant.
all-time highs. Market doesn't
More
care about the
relevant.
stupid noise.
Great.
That's the way. That's my side of the coin. Give me your side of the coin.
I mean, I look at this and I go, okay, so you were just talking about last week was kind of a tale of two cities, right? We had the first half of the week and it was one thing, and then the second half of the week, a different thing.
Sure.
The vibe clearly changed. We talked about it on last call on Friday, that there was some kind of a vibe shift in the second half of the week. And it's not surprising to see. The markets went into last week going, everything is going to be fine. The Trump Xi conversation is going to be fine. Bessent already told us they're just going to come in and rubber stamp some stuff. It's going to be okay. Earnings looked like they were not going to be bad. Tech had been outperforming. Meta ended up being a miss, but okay, that's one. Everything else was, for the most part, solid.
Yeah.
The big difference was everybody thought they were coming into a Fed meeting that was going to just say, okay, we told you in September, 3 cuts, that with 3 meetings on the calendar. How much could we deviate? And Jay Powell came up there and said, if you thought that December was going to be a foregone conclusion, I have news for you. And made it forceful and made it really, really sort of his mission to explain to markets that the pricing in Fed funds futures is wrong. And they moved. And since then, the markets got kind of soggy. And you sort of get the sense that, okay, the markets were, let's say, priced for perfection going into the beginning of the week. And one thing they got was not the thing. So now we're kind of on the lower end of the range. Friday was kind of an inside day. It looked like a rally because we gapped, but it didn't ultimately go anywhere intraday. And so this is going to be an interesting week. We're going to get some third-party data. So we're going to get a look at the economy a little bit. ISM numbers, the manufacturing side comes on Monday. That'll start us off. Then we're going to get the services sector side, which is ostensibly the more important side, on Wednesday. And finally, that should give us a little bit of a glance at the economy. Technically, we're supposed to have NFP on Friday. Are we going to get it? Who knows?
It's anybody's guess.
Yeah. If anybody decides that they should turn this thing back on, maybe we'll get NFP on Friday.
Don't get me started.
It doesn't look good.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't look good.
Doesn't look good. I mean, even if it is all smoke and mirrors, it doesn't look good.
No. It's just the whole thing just looks kind of like, well, so we don't know where the labor market is just because we don't? Why?
Well,
I mean, to play contrarian for a second, I mean, what look, just for a second, I mean, what's the worst thing that happens without us knowing, really? I mean, in life, like, I don't know. I really don't know, actually.
Well,
so the Fed said, in terms of like, can the Fed steer in this environment? Powell said, look, if something was happening that was inescapably obvious, obviously we'd see it. Like if the economy was doing something untoward, we'd know because credit markets would show it, bond markets would show it.
Right.
You'd know. And so what they're missing is nuance. And that was really his point about December. He was saying, look, we gave you a couple of maintenance cuts. We gave you September, we gave you October. It looked like the labor market maybe was getting a little soft. We can't see what to do in December unless it's like something is melting down or very obviously running off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
So why would we do anything? And if the market is going to get so hot and bothered about that, that's a catalyst onto itself. If the market wants the Fed to be moving, and clearly they do, the price action after the Fed told us that, and the Fed funds futures, frankly, are still showing it. The Fed told them just 25 basis points next year. The market's got 60 odd already discounted. So they think the Fed is at least wrong by 1 cut, if not 2.
Well,
So,
that's their talk too, right? I mean,
right.
it's not. I mean, that's their forward-looking guidance, which is subject to change, right? I
Oh, of
mean,
course,
Always.
of course. But normally, what the markets would do is they go, okay, Fed funds futures have 50 basis points and some change. The
yeah,
Fed is telling you just one cut. Let's see the data. Let's see who's wrong.
sure.
But we don't have data. So ISM data is going to be the closest you're going to get this coming week as a kind of stand-in. There's an inflation gauge in there. There's a jobs gauge in there. Obviously, the service sector is most of the economy, 80-ish%. So that's a big number on Wednesday.
Mhm.
Let's see if the markets essentially go, okay, you know what? This is the best visibility we've got. So this is our North Star. Let's see what this is. And then, of course, earnings.
Yeah, I mean, here I look at it. Obviously you're a much more macro guy than I look. I look at it, from a layman's point of view. I mean, the government spends a lot of money on bidding on different contracts, and that
Sure.
that hurts people and hurts businesses if they can't do
Absolutely.
that. I mean, the SBA loans and the housing, that's an obvious thing there. Then you've got, I'm traveling this weekend, so now it's coming up. So air
Where
traffic.
are you traveling to?
Well, I'm going to Austin for the last show. That's
Well,
right.
now it's the FAA too.
That's right. That's what I was gonna. That's what I'm getting
Right.
to. You know,
Right.
it's
And the FAA head is out there basically saying, "Look, we're going to keep people safe, and if that means delays and cancellations, then that's what it means."
yeah, yeah.
Which I mean, it makes sense. I mean, better people be delayed and canceled than something worse.
Hell
But
yeah. Let me tell you something.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, right? If we do the math on the economy, the latest GDP numbers had 68% of the economy being private consumption, and this hurts private consumption.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just that
definitely
simple, I think.
something, no doubt about it.
When I
Yeah.
think about listen, I will tell you what, one of the worst flights I ever had, I was so annoyed that it was taking a long time for us to leave. And I was like, damn, like when are we ever going to leave? And then we finally, it was like weather. We finally left. It was the bumpiest ride ever, man, which I'm the worst at that. Like I'm like the worst at like bumpy stomach. I don't do roller coasters. I remember one of the drops. I never heard of, I'm sorry, I almost said the wrong word, but a flight attendant. I never heard a flight attendant yell the way that I ever heard in that flight. And I was like, you know what? Never again do I. If it's delayed, I'm fine. Whatever. Like it's cool.
Yeah, yeah. You want to get
I
there.
heard that.
It doesn't matter. The whole thing is getting there for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, even the S&Ps are steadily going higher, up 17 and change. Nasdaq up 65. Russell's up around 9. They're all up around the same, a quarter to a third of percentage point.
Hmm.
Dow's up 100. Volatility already in by 30 cents, something I spoke about just a moment ago. Bonds are up 5. If you took your long delta and we go nowhere into the weekend, you will get paid on Monday for 3 days worth of volatility, in my opinion. I don't think it was all taken out over the weekend. Bitcoin up 600 to 110.9. That's on the futures. Ethereum down $6 and change. Oil remains up 35 cents. Gold caught itself a little bit of a bid, trading near the highs, up 11. What do you think about gold here, my friend Ilya? What do you, from a macro point of view? 4,000. Here we are. What do we do about it?
I'm a little bit short. And it's not because I think that we're going to get some sort of ugly collapse or anything like that. I started doing it by selling calls, essentially on the idea that really I just thought that vol was going to come down a little bit. Gold does this weird thing where vol in gold goes up when the price goes up. So not a stocks type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that it was getting a little crazy. And when it started to come down a little bit, I said, you know what? I get this is a massive rally, but it seems to be cooling off a little. Let me at least sell some calls. Since then, I've started to actually look at the 1 ounce gold futures, which are a very comfortable size.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of the equivalent of like a M6E
Yeah, like a micro.
contract. Yeah, and so I'm happy to just buy and sell the futures outright. And so as it's been making its way lower, I started to sell there a little bit. We're kind of holding this support around 3,900 or so, but I'm okay being a little bit short. I think there's a little bit more of a correction in this thing because if there's one market that seems to be making some real headway here, it's the dollar. And sort of the flip side of that is maybe a little bit weaker Bitcoin. I'm short a little of that and a little bit weaker gold. And so I have both of those on here. They're not like runaway hits or anything like that, but they're doing their thing a little bit.
Yeah, the euro, the pound is both pretty much mixed, and then you got the yen.
I like the euro especially for what it did on Friday. It seemed to take out the recent lows there. Let's call it like 115.80, something like that, and maybe has some room down to maybe test under 115, maybe into the 114 area. Dollar's been really resilient for all this talk of rate cuts and everything like this. It hasn't set a lower low since basically July. And so that's a market where it's just, you look at the price action and you go, well, all the chatter says this should be falling, but it won't fall. This market doesn't want to go down. It's just waiting for a reason to uncoil higher. So I've been piling in.
Piling in on the long side
on the long side of dollar. Yeah, I mean, I'm short euro, short pound, Aussie, Canadian dollar. On the spot FX side, in my Tasty FX account, I've got some long dollar yen exposure. So just looking for where the futures are too big and using spot instead. But very long dollars. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess de facto long dollars by being short gold and short Bitcoin too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nick has a similar type position, small, but basically long dollar, short everything else in there.
Yeah. I mean, that was a really bad 6 months in the first half of the year. And in July, none of the narrative around what happened at the beginning really seemed to change, and it just stopped falling. You go, okay, well, just believe the market. If the price action is telling you it's done, and the news hasn't changed, the market's right.
Anything if so? So what is your so for the economic news? They haven't said that it's definitely coming out or it's not coming out, right? It's still
right. We don't know. Well, I mean, it's contingent on the shutdown, and obviously, at least with CPI, we got a little bit of a special dispensation. So they called a bunch of furloughed workers back to BLS to put it out because they needed to make the cost of living adjustment on Social Security, and that's a 3-month window, July, August, September. No September numbers, no cost of living adjustment. That's obviously a mess. So they made a special exemption. Looks like they're making a special exemption for SNAP food assistance payments. Thank God. We'll see. Maybe we'll get a jobs number out by some sort of special decree.
So I'm more interested in market moves. So here's the way I always looked at it. So and not about economic shutdowns per se, but if there was news to come out, that always brought a lot of brought more volatility and a little bit more uncertainty.
Yes.
So if there was a news event coming out, whether it be earnings or a number, like you just mentioned, market would, go sideways-ish, volatility would expand. That would be my, if that was the bet, if I had to make a bet and go all in, that's what I would say. Now that you got a little bit of uncertainty, and if they say that there'll be no number, it usually, to me, seems like it goes to the path of least resistance, which you have to say at all-time highs in the equity markets would be to the upside.
Yeah.
Do you see it like that too? Because that's the way I would be playing it. If they were by they I mean the government comes out and says that they're not giving us any numbers, I would think that would be a little bit of a bullish movement. Yeah,
I think in the absence of event risk, you certainly take away one thing for people to think about. But obviously, we have earnings. It's not like it was last week. That is event risk this week. That's a little bit lighter,
right? I mean, last week was great. I mean, you mentioned it just a moment ago too. But I mean, Amazon up big, Apple up big, Reddit. I mean, they all were good.
Yeah, I mean, right? everything was generally okay. Microsoft was kind of weird because their numbers were good, but the stock fell. Mm-hmm. But it didn't fall like Meta did because Meta's numbers actually missed, and they missed by
well inside
by a bunch
from Microsoft.
Yes. But Microsoft ultimately ended up fine. Mm-hmm. So, and Apple was a little bit of a sell the news because they bought the rumor a week earlier
Yeah.
on independent numbers talking about iPhone 17 sales.
Mhm.
Okay. But generally, fine. No big issues in earnings. So if it's the ISM numbers, we'll see. But for me, the big thing that sort of decides what that sort of path of least resistance is in the absence of event risk, it's the cost of money. It's the cost of deploying risk. And that's why last week what the Fed did was a little bit off-putting, I thought, for markets, which is why they ended kind of iffy at the end of the week. Because what the Fed basically said is the near-term cost of money is not going to be as friendly for risk taking as you all thought. And so I think maybe that keeps things a little bit on the defensive. I wouldn't look for a big sell-off, though. I think more like a sideways grind, waiting for a headline to tip the scales.
All right, very good. Jamal, you got anything to add before we wrap it all up here with even the S&Ps hanging up around 15 handles?
I'm just curious about how, like you said, volatility is going to be this week. I'm curious about gold. I'm curious about Bitcoin. Bitcoin's been
Yeah.
hanging out in this 108, 110 range, and it needs something. They need something to push it back up. Otherwise, you could see some lower prices, I think, at some point.
You could always have
So
something to push it back down. I mean, I'm sure it helped me out here.
yeah, yeah. True. And yeah, I mean, again, this is where, we still got a ton of earnings, but honestly, the big ones are gone. And so it's going to be a different feel, I think, by the end of the week. And there's really no big macro thing to hold your hat on. So it's really a week that I feel like could be lacking a little bit of direction, but I'm sure something will pop up. That's how this year has been. This has been the greatest market ever, man. And I hope it continues.
Yeah, with you there. All right, my friend Ilya, thank you so much for your time. Jamal, as always, I will see you tomorrow on the show. Even the S&P are up 14, Nasdaq's up 50, volatility's in by 20 cents, bonds are up 4. Looks like a sea of green right now. We'll see what we wake up with. Well, see you then. See you in the morning.
Yep.
Peace.
Peace.